Ni hao, good morning. This is an update from myself, Leonie Watson, Chair of the Board of Directors, and Chris Needham, my Vice Chair on the board. We're going to give you an update on some of the activities of the board and each of our committees. Before I do that, though, I need to remind you that a very great deal of what we do on the board is board confidential. This is because, as directors and officers, we have a collective responsibility to act in the best interests of the organisation always, and sometimes that means protecting the confidentiality of what we discuss. Fortunately, there is plenty I can tell you about that is member confidential, though. For the board, some of the highlights include overseeing the strategic W3C strategy development. That began, some of you may recall, with a strategic retreat in Tokyo with Seth in January last year, and throughout the next few months, it continued with updates from Seth and further consultations with the board. More recently, we've invited each of the 5 strategy leads to attend board meetings and give us more detailed updates on each of their initiatives. We have the last of those Horizon 1 updates at our board meeting later this week, and at the same time, we will begin looking ahead at Horizon 2 planning. We've been working with management to realise one W3C across geographies and regions. This is, you will understand, a very broad topic, and it's involved many different parts of the board. The board itself oversaw the creation of the representative office here in China, which was a pleasure. We have corrected our understanding of what it means to be a US legal entity operating with a presence in China. And now the Finance Committee and the Audit Committee are in the process of reflecting that understanding, both in our financial reporting and in our audited accounts. And it relates to the Personnel Committee in the sense of W3C, of course, has a multi-geography team and engagement between the team and our members from around the world. We replaced our AB liaison policy with the AB and board collaboration plan. This removed representatives of the AB as a permanent presence in board spaces, and instead we have continued with monthly meetings between the board chairs, AB chairs, TAG chairs, and the CEO for the purposes of keeping each other up to date on what our respective groups are doing. We've also moved to holding joint meetings when we have topics of shared interest. And since we put this plan in place late last year, we've already had 2 meetings with the advisory board on the subject of ACU representatives and consortium member representatives. And we also committed to taking every opportunity we could to social engagement when we're all in the same place, as we are this week. And with huge thanks to Angel, the board is really looking forward to having dinner with members of the AB and, I believe, TAG that are still here on Thursday night this week. And we've made a number of approvals based on the approvals based on the activities of various committees. We've approved the CEO's goals for 2026, the budget for 2026, and numerous new policies and policy updates. And that's a great time for me to hand over to Chris to tell you about the first of our committees.
Thank you, Leonie, and good morning to you all. So we'll go through the various committees that we have in the board in alphabetical order. So I'll start with the Audit Committee, which is responsible for retaining an independent auditor to audit W3C's financial accounts. So we've been working with Eisencraft over the last couple of years, and so we appointed them to conduct our 2024 financial year audits. As Leonie just mentioned, we're currently working with Grant Thornton Zitong in China to audit W3's accounts that are held at Beihang, and this will go back over 2023, 2024, and ahead for 2025 audits, so that we have a fully sort of consolidated view of our audited financials over those years. As a result of that, we'll be organising the refiling of our Form 990 for W3C for 2023 and 2024 to include the results of the Beihang audit. And we're currently in the process of reappointing Eisencraft, who we've been working with for the last couple of years, to also work with us for our 2025 audit. So on to our Development Committee.
Great, thanks. And I want to acknowledge Chris Needham as the chair of the Audit Committee. The Development Committee is chaired by Chris Wilson, and it began our search for board-elected directors. For those of you, many of you, I imagine, who haven't rigorously read our bylaws, we have, as directors, the ability to appoint up to 3 more directors. The Development Committee began the search and review of potential candidates, but the board took the decision in February this year to defer the rest of that activity until the next term. At the same time, however, the board charged the Development Committee with hiring an external company to provide an independent board evaluation review. If you haven't heard of one of those before, it is something that is commonly regarded as good practice, even best practice in corporate governance terms. Chris.
Thank you. So moving on to our Finance Committee, this is chaired by Florian. So this committee has introduced a budget review process which involves negotiation with W3C's partners to determine their budgets and incorporate that into the overall W3C budget, and has recommended that the board approve the budget for 2026. It has been reviewing our cash reserve needs with our treasurer and officers, and it continues to work with officers to refine our financial forecasting and our reporting that's in line with US GAAP requirements and the key metrics that we need. And the committee continues to monitor our financial reporting and making recommendations for adjustments as and when those are needed. Leonie.
Thank you. That takes us on to the Governance Committee, chaired by Mariama Sensei. The Governance Committee has been working on our policies and recommended that the board approve the introduction of new policies, including a board email policy, board support staff policy, and a board transparency and communications policy. They also recommended that the board approve updates to existing policies, including the confidentiality policy and member termination policies. Their current work is looking ahead to the forthcoming consortium members meeting and at the same time the election of the next set of board of directors. They're also in conversation with the secretary, who is W3C's Director of Legal and Compliance, about potential changes to the bylaws that may be coming our way.
Thank you. Finally, our Personnel Committee. So the Personnel Committee has responsibility for personnel employment and compensation and performance management within the organisation, with a particular focus on the CEO role. So the committee oversaw the CEO's progress on goals for 2025 and conducted the annual performance review for 2025. As a result of that, we set the goals for the CEO for 2026 and is currently overseeing the progress on those. And we have a periodic review cycle where we review progress and give feedback. The committee is also overseeing an annual review of the executive and disqualified persons compensation as required by the IRS. And this is really the focus on individuals within the organisation and management who have a particular influence over the organisation to make sure that there's no self-interest occurring sort of through compensation. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to finish off by saying, you can at any time reach all of the board, that includes the officers, directors and our support staff, through the email address board-contact@w3.org. You'll get an automatic response to acknowledge receipt, but we will follow up with you directly, though it may take us a little time while we gather our collective thoughts as a board before we can do that in a useful and informed way. Per the email policy that I mentioned, the Governance Committee had put in place, several board directors now do have their own W3C addresses that indicate clearly that we are members of the board.
we're looking at ways we can share those addresses with all of you. What makes that a little bit challenging is that not all directors have been able to take up that opportunity due to restrictions on their own corporate machines. So we need to find a way to be able to share addresses appropriately without jeopardizing people's data privacy for those using addresses that are not part of W3C. But more on that as soon as we can do it. But please do reach out to the board if you have anything you'd like to talk to us about. And of course, right now, if you have questions, we'd be delighted.
Great, thank you.